You're listening to the REI Marketing Nerds Podcast, the leading resource for real estate investors who want to dominate their market online. Dan Barrett is the founder of AdWords Nerds, a high-tech digital agency focusing exclusively on helping real estate investors like you get more leads and deals online, outsmart your competition, and live a freer, more awesome life. And now, your host, Dan Barrett.
All right. Hello and welcome everyone to this week's episode of the REI Marketing Nerds Podcast. As always, this is Daniel Barrett here from AdWordsNerds.com. And look, as always, if you need leads or deals online for your real estate investing business, you know where to go. It's AdWordsNerds.com. We've got all sorts of free resources over there for you. Plus, you can jump on a call with a member of my team and we will help you put together an online marketing strategy for your market. Now, man, you want to talk about a wide-ranging conversation. I am talking this week with the man who may just be the most interesting man in real estate investing and development, and that is Ken Van Liew from kenvanliew.com. That is spelled KenVanLiew. Ken is an incredible person, a wide-ranging talent with a deep background in real estate investing and development. He's also been a magician. He's been a football player. He has done it all. He's worked with Tony Robbins. He has developed giant projects. He has lost $300 million in a single day. And that doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of all the stuff that we talk about in this interview. I cannot wait for you to get a load of Ken Van Liew. So without any further ado, let's jump straight to the interview. I am here with Ken Van Liew. That is from kenvanliew.com. That's VANLIEW, kenvanliew.com. Welcome to the show, Ken. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It's awesome to be here. What's happening? How you doing today?
I'm doing well, man. It's it's interesting, right? Like we live in such a wild time. And like before the call, before we jumped on, I was like diving way into all the stuff that's been happening with AI, and there's all this stuff happening in Google ads and all this stuff happening. It's like everywhere you look, there's something wild happening. It just feels like. So I don't know, man, it's a fun time to be alive. And I'm really excited to talk to you because you have this career that spans so many different parts of real estate investing and just real estate in general, real estate development. We have this really interesting sort of backstory. So there's so much stuff I want to touch on. Let's start in the present, and then I want to go back in time a little bit. But I know, we spoke earlier, before on this podcast, people come on, we do a quick kind of pre-call, get to know each other a little bit. And you were telling me about this gigantic project you have going in North Carolina. So to give people an idea of the scale and scope of the type of thing that you are doing, why don't you walk us through that deal? What are you working on right now? Give us the kind of overview of it, and that'll be our into who are you and what you do.
Thank you again, Dan, for the opportunity. And it was a real pleasure, talking to you a little bit about the project, and it just gets more exciting every day. So, we just opened up our website, lewisburgfalls.com, which has our extraordinary video that we just completed. And it's pretty fascinating, the technology. You talk a little bit about AI. Last week, we found out through telephone AI that there's 1.2 million visitors in the last 12 months at the across the street at the Super Walmart. And instantly, you get traffic counts, 12,000 at the intersection, et cetera, et cetera. But the exciting thing is, when you do a project of this magnitude, it's 45 acres. And what we created it's called a planned development district, where essentially the town works with you. And behind closed doors, a lot of times they tell you, hey, tell us what you want to do and we'll help you get there. So I had this vision of creating an extraordinary destination, that has, luxury townhomes, residential apartments, retail, parks-like settings. Lewisburg Falls, we actually have a falls. It has a wellness center. There's going to be a hotel, self-storage, so it really pertains to everything, some medical offices. and just believe that, Lewisburg, which is a little bit of a sleeper town, that's been around for, since 1776, has an executive airport, regional airport, has a college. And, we found this just through, the way we find deals, building relationships and connecting, and then utilizing my civil engineering skills to create something that's out of the norm. Where most people go in and buy a property, they'll work towards a zoning change or a zoning variance, where a lot of cases that's at the town level, where when you do a plan, plan design development district, it's recorded at the county. So that's the differences and a little bit about the project.
Yeah. So how long has it been since like the very first sort of ideation for this project? Like we're sort of recording this in the end of 2022. So how long have you been working on this in one forward?
Yeah. Great question, because we signed the contract about a year ago. I believe it was November 13th. And it probably took about 4 or 5 months of just building a relationship. It started with a friend of mine of 38 years that I did my first project in Poughkeepsie, New York. I was a super, and he did the windows, and kept in touch all these years. He has a big glazing company in Raleigh now, another office in Sterling, Virginia. And he was buying a condo, believe it or not, how it works, and, it's so important to build what I call is a little bit deeper emotional rapport. He was buying a condo in Myrtle Beach. The realtor happened to be from Raleigh, or from Lewisburg. Mark being from Raleigh, they start talking. The guy from Lewisburg says, "Hey, I know this doctor that has a property." One thing led to another. I'm talking to the broker, and, we're talking about making a deal, so that's how it really came to fruition, probably 16 months ago when it started,
So, and this is sort of a general question. We could take this wherever you like, but when you are starting a project like this, right? And let's say, we're talking about 16 months before, right? Just sort of just getting started. But even before that, right? Do you have, did you sit down and in a notebook and write out a very specific plan for exactly what you wanted to do, right? You just mentioned, right, is like your friend from 38 years ago, right, is kind of what was part of that process and sort of part of getting it started. Did you know a long time ago that this is exactly what you wanted to do? Was it a matter of being ready when the opportunity presented itself? Like, how much planning did you do beforehand? Does that make sense?
After learning how to design every single aspect, it planted a seed in 1985 that I've just continued to, play out. And that's really when all the thought process took place. I learned how to design it. So, when I forecast buying a site, which is, essentially how I've broken down real estate, you have to find the deal, you have to be able to fund it, and you have to be able to facilitate. So it's typical real estate investing. The difference is I'm buying the properties with little or no money down, contingent upon approval, so I don't have to close on the property and carry it during the approval process. Okay. So what we do is we go and we get the approval, and then we use that approval to get the financing, and all in one shot. When we break ground, boom, we just dive right in and continue the work. So, we submitted a project, a full design in 1985 before AutoCAD even existed. My partner and I, one other student, his dad was a civil engineer architect. So every weekend for that entire semester, we worked in Cinnaminson, New Jersey, learning a program called VersaCAD. And we submitted in like a 16 drawing plan to New Jersey Institute of Technology, and we won the award. We were like, the top of the class. And, for the civil engineering project, which to me, it was the seed for real estate. I went into civil engineering, and then I went into construction. It wasn't years later until all the dots connected and stars started to align, and fast forward, over the years, I worked myself up the ladder, starting as an engineer and then moving into construction just because I loved the outside. I hated sitting at a desk, and started as a project super, and then worked myself into project management, ultimately to project executive, working for some large companies in New York City, some of the largest developers, built for Bruce Ratner, who owned the New Jersey Nets, Joseph Chetreat, very, very established developer in New York City. And, that's really how the journey started, just doing it for myself, doing it for other people, and, then being able to pay it forward and showing people how I'm doing it.
Well, man, so, I mean, I love that we were able to kind of get both ends of it, right? Because we've got this big project you're working on now. We got kind of like where you started, right? With the background in civil engineering, which is actually like, I really haven't heard that very often. So I think that's pretty amazing skill set to bring into real estate investing.
Want to find motivated seller leads online, but don't know where to start? Download our free Motivated Seller Keyword Report today. AdWords nerds have spent over $5 million this year researching the most profitable keywords for finding motivated seller leads. And you can grab these exact keywords when you download our report at www.adwordsnerds.com/keywords.
Let's talk a little bit about your business now and kind of the different pieces that you have of it. I know you're actually shooting a documentary with Dennis Quaid. So let's talk about that. And then let's back up and give us the kind of 30,000 foot overview of Ken Van Liew and like kind of all the different pieces of the business that you have running now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been a real blessing. In the last 13 months, we married off our 3 children. So, and during that time, I started working with the Viewpoint Project and Dennis Quaid, which was probably 8 months ago, and didn't really realize how much was involved to put a documentary together. Literally starting with the title called "Real Estate Today: Keys to Investing." Giving me the opportunity to tell people throughout America's 65 million households on why everybody should get involved in real estate investing. It just doesn't make sense if you're not in real estate investing, and
yeah,
it was just been a great journey, so we just got the footage, and it's real exciting, to see it. And it's going to be coming out to Fox Network in January, and then it's going to air on public television all next year. And it's like a little 3-minute documentary that plays as a commercial in between all the public television programs. And it's just real exciting. We have an opportunity to share what we've learned over the last, 38 years. And, you can't do anything with all the knowledge, so you might as well share it a little bit, and so, and then I guess you could say, I'm a overachiever. We also 3 months ago started writing 3 books. You probably heard of the Modern Wealth Building Formula, which I have behind me here, the Modern Wealth Building Formula. And, we're coming out with three new books, real exciting about that. And one of them, it's called Dirt, along the lines of what we're talking about. I really, as I look back and, reflecting on what just occurred in the last 13 months, shifting out of COVID, I wrote this book called Dirt, which is work hard, play harder, buy dirt, because when you buy dirt and you do what I've explained, where you get the entitlement to build projects like this, you could literally triple the value of the property. This property is worth 3 times what we're buying it for. And, that's the beauty,
So you are clearly very invested in this idea of educating people. Sort of like you said, right? You've got all this knowledge, you got to do something with it. You might as well pass it on. I think that's a very noble sentiment, right? And you are doing it in multiple formats, right? Like you've got the video format, you've got again, for people that are listening, if you've never written a book, 3 books is an absolutely bonkers thing to do. And that is really, really amazing in and of itself. I know for a fact you sort of make courses, you coach and you consult, you've got advisement services, you've got all this stuff going on. So I'm curious, like with all this experience of trying to explain real estate investing to people and specifically to get people to take action on what you are telling them, right? Where do you find that people get tripped up when they think about getting started in real estate? Right? Like, what are the big obstacles that people, it could be real obstacles or it could just be in their head that are sort of stopping people from getting involved or making it part of their portfolio or, however it fits into their life. Does it make sense?
So, there's a lot of moving parts that I want to tell you about. And Global Real Estate Strategies, being an advisory firm for many years, has now taken what you just asked and really learned on how to connect all the dots. So when people learn about Ken Van Liew and Global Real Estate Strategies, they understand how to get started in real estate. So if you go to Global Real Estate Strategies, if someone was interested in finding about real estate, you'd go to Global Real Estate Strategies and it would ask you, hey, are you a passive or active investor? And it gives you the choice, because we have our Global Freedom Fund, where for people that don't want to get their hands dirty or don't want to educate themselves, they can just invest their money and have someone responsibly take care of it with the Global Freedom Fund. If someone is coming to Global Real Estate Strategies or Ken Van Liew, to get educated, they have the option to look at our Global Real Estate Investment Enterprise, where they could, achieve real estate success through educating themselves, through the courses that we give and through the group coaching we have. So, I really felt 10 years ago, in 2008, when Lehman Brothers crashed and we lost $300 million in one day, and I learned about the informational marketing business, I learned that there was all these gurus that did it once and then just kept upselling you and upselling you and upselling you. And what I learned was that at that point was I was going to create a full gamut of real estate programs so that someone could just, come hang out with Ken Van Liew and the Global Real Estate, enterprise, and have everything they need to be successful in real estate, whether they need education from investing in a passive standpoint, how to deal with the taxation thereof. From an advisory level, they could take that path. Whether they want to educate themselves just for educating themselves about real estate, they could do that. If they want to educate themselves and be an active investor and actually go out and do wholesaling or fixing and flipping or buying commercial real estate or getting into real estate development, they have that option also. And that was something I envisioned back in 2008 when I was faced with one of the biggest challenges of my life. And, I was just always taught, from being on the gridiron and an all-state football player, you just keep hitting and never give up, man. Just keep hitting and never give up. We won the state championship my junior and senior year. And, I took those skills of, just hitting and never give up, just keep hitting it hard and never give up, to the business world. And, along with being a magician and keeping magic in my life, it all came back to fruition.
All right. So there's like 5 different threads we've got to pull on just in the last answer.
You asked a loaded question there, buddy.
Well, it's like, look, it's easy when you've got an interesting subject, right? There's a lot of places to go. I want to zoom in just for a moment. So you mentioned this story of losing $300 million when Lehman Brothers crashed. And I think that one of the things I've really been trying to do on this show is to focus on stories of people that went through these sort of incredibly, chaotic or maybe traumatic business moments and kind of talk about how you got through them. Because I think in today's market, there are a lot of people who are experiencing a very uncertain market for the first time, right? They're experiencing this need to maybe shift their business model or pivot what they do. I'm experiencing that, right? In my business, right? I think this is something that everybody just kind of needs to get used to. And I think those stories are really useful. So let's zoom in on that moment for a little bit. Can you tell me how you found out, right? So you said Lehman Brothers, like for people that don't remember, right, around 2008, the entire business basically went under. It was this massively economically destabilizing moment, right? Not just for you, but for basically the entire country. Do you remember like what it was like? How did you find out? What was it like? Like what was going through your head in that moment?
I'll tell you, I was literally at the top of the world. We completed 240 Park Avenue. When I tell you Tom Brady and Giselle came into my office to look at the penthouse, we had rolled the money into St. Vincent's Hospital that was basically shutting down. We were going to do thousands of dormitory units. We bought a city block on 6th Avenue between 33rd and 35th, essentially a block away from Madison Square Garden. And it all went up in smoke because Lehman, had a multi-million-dollar mezzanine loan with us, and the door shut, and it was, I was with a group where literally we had major projects going on. We were developing the toy building with their money, and everything just stopped. And then that led into
Wow.
and it was funny because it was a week where Bear Stearns had collapsed. I had actually built 9 stories of tenant fit out for Bear Stearns in the Brooklyn Union Gas headquarters in Brooklyn, New York, part of Metro Tech. And literally, Michael Milken was involved in Bear Stearns, and you used to hear about, all that stuff blowing up. But, for them to go under after getting through, all of that stuff with Michael and stuff like that, I was really surprised to be in a situation to even think, because I wasn't even thinking that Lehman would ever crash. They had been around for 100 years.
Or wait, there's a certain amount of institutional sort of halo there, right? Because it's like, we sort of laugh now, like the whole like too big to fail idea, but it's like that's kind of, at least how I remember all that stuff feeling was, well, these companies this can't happen to a company this big. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I could see how that would be like really shocking.
Yeah. So it was an interesting day, and everything I had studied for 30 years back then, or it was 25 years, just didn't calculate, and in the 5 boroughs, literally it was, I remember the number, 505 projects stopped,
Well, no.
and it was interesting, just cranes sitting there, not moving. But, we were fortunate, I was fortunate to give someone a call who was a senior vice president for them, years ago or years prior. And one of the projects that hadn't stopped was one on 88th and Park Avenue. And I called it the fishbowl because it ended up being a millionaire's listing. It was a 12-story building, all glass, and it had 5 luxury apartments. And I literally went from being like king of the hill to going to a site office and building the project. The contractor had some challenges after what occurred. And this guy, Trevor Davis, is like, hey, if you want to get a check written to your company, go park yourself on the job site and build it. Unfortunately, I had done it so many times before. I was a licensed site safety super, which is a license to build 100,000 square foot buildings. I was a professional engineer. I had a couple of master's degrees. I knew everything about it, but I had to take a step back and actually humble myself and be able to be thankful and grateful that where these big construction companies were laying off like droves of hundreds of people. I was still building a project in New York City that ended up on Millionaire's listing.
Hey guys, hope you enjoyed part 1 of this episode. It's just too good to limit to one show. Join us next week to hear the rest.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.